Just 23 miles north of downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, lies the picturesque town of Evans City. Keeping a record of the citizens and the events of the area is the mission of the Evans City Historical Society and the museum that they operate. Located in a 30 by 30 room at the back of the town library, the museum houses some of the interesting artifacts to the 200-year history of the area. Before any Europeans settled in the area, future President George Washington traveled through the area in 1753, and he was even shot at by a local Native American. Thankfully, the shot missed, and Washington was thus able to lead the future country in its rebellion against the British Crown. In 1804, Robert Boggs was the first European settler to take up residence and adopted the name of Boggs Mill for the area. 28 years later, Boggs sold 200 of his 400-acre farm to the Thomas B. Evans, who immediately had lots surveyed and began selling them to form the new village known as Evansboro or Evansburg. Growth for the town was slow until the arrival of the narrow gauge railroad in 1878 that connected Allegheny City, today's Pittsburgh's north side, to Zelienople. The rail lines ushered in a growth spurt that raised the population to 637 in 1890. In 1901, President McKinley's funeral train traveled along the tracks through the town. Residents waited for hours to catch a glimpse of the historic event, many placing coins, such as the ones in the museum, on the tracks to memorialize the event. In 1902, the railroad station caught fire and was totally destroyed. The residents needed a new station, and the site of the original station was quickly discarded. This presented a dilemma for the town that was not easily remedied. The opposite side of the tracks was a stream known as the Breakneck Creek. If they wanted to build the new station on that side of the tracks, it would have to be built over water. After considerable thought and planning, the new station was erected over the creek. According to Robert Ripley of Ripley's Believe It or Not, it was the only train station in the world that was built over water. Unfortunately, in 1977, after a valiant effort spearheaded by fourth grade teacher and future Mayor Dean Zinkham and several local politicians, the station was destroyed and a valuable piece of history was lost forever. Having such a prominent place in the town's history, the railroad and its unique station also find a prominent position in the museum. From hundreds of newspaper articles and photos, to a large display that features a scale model of the station, signal lanterns, a telegraph key, and brass accoutrements from a conductor's uniform fill a large section of the museum. The railroad was not the only means of transportation in the town. The old Venango Trail that connected Pittsburgh and Franklin, Pennsylvania, traveled directly through the town, and the trolley system known as the Harmony Route was founded in 1907. The town was a key stop on the line that enabled trolleys to travel to Pittsburgh, Butler, and Elwood City. Oil was discovered in nearby Ford Township in 1892. While not directly in the town, the oil fields were served by local merchants such as Smathers and Cooper Grocery Store that would deliver groceries to the oil field workers throughout the year. 20 years later, in 1914, oil was discovered within the town limits, and drilling was intense for the next 3 years until the oil dried up. This picture shows a house just one block off Main Street that had an oil derrick in its yard. The final well was capped in 2021. Growth of the city can be visualized by the early 1900s map of the town that depicts a growing and prosperous settlement. All of these events and many more are portrayed by the various artifacts in the Evans City Historical Society Museum. The museum is run entirely by volunteers the Society does a yeoman's effort in preserving the local history for future generations. Upon entering the museum, one of the first things you notice is the fact that there's not a single area that could house even one more artifact. Local citizens have donated or loaned so many artifacts that the museum is full to the point of bursting. Upon entering the museum, there is a row of display cases along the right-hand wall. These display cases house a variety of artifacts. The first case contains many smaller artifacts from local businesses and events throughout the town's history. The second case is a collection of women's hats, many crafted in Evans City in the mid-20th century. The final case along the wall houses photographs and memorabilia from some of the local World War II veterans. Evans City has a long heritage of answering her country's call from the Civil War up to today's conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan. Having already discussed the town's first claim to fame in the railroad station, another event that is very important to the Evans City history happened in 1968. That year, movie director George Romero came to town and filmed his cult classic, Night of the Living Dead. The museum houses many items related to the movie itself and the Living Dead Fest held in town in October of every year. Romero could only bring the major characters for the film on location, so many local residents and Pittsburgh television personalities, Bill Cardilli, were employed to fill in the cast. The Evans City Cemetery is the location for the only building prominently used in the film that still stands today. It is a well-sought-after destination for fans of the movie, and many weddings have been performed there by the town's mayor. Romero returned 5 years later and filmed another cult classic, The Crazies, again using many local residents in his film. The Crazies featured another of Evans City's various historic icons, the Evans City Fire Department. Established in 1896 as the John A. Irvin Volunteer Fire Company, by 1897 a firehouse was constructed which stood until the early morning of February 8th, 1957, when the alarm sounded that the station was on fire. Only the fire apparatus and a boat were saved, and construction quickly began on a new building. The same year, Charles Chuck Eddie Schoeffel became fire chief, a position he held for 23 years. The fire department article is located just inside the entrance to the museum, where the protective gear he wore as he helped protect the community. The Matchbox Company helped to immortalize the efforts of the fire department to protect the community when they produced a miniature 1956 Mack pumper in their Models of Yesteryear series. Located in a smaller room just to the side of the main exhibit hall is a storage area for photos and written documents. This area is extremely well organized with binders on local businesses, major events, and social organizations. Large file cabinets also contain data on the majority of families that have resided in town throughout the years. For anyone interested in genealogy, this small archive is a tremendous place to start. This video barely scratches the surface of what is available at the museum for everyone to survey and enjoy. Hopefully you will be able to visit the museum and learn about your family, the house you live in, or the local community. All of the photographs and artifacts used in this presentation are available for closer examination at the Evans City Historical Society Museum.